If I had to simplify the main game scene, it would be a series of platforms having pipes on top and bottom that repeat endlessly with small differences in height to create the game loop. So I'm just gonna create a pipe and duplicate it here and there to visualize how everything's gonna look. The background will have the main buildings and generic ones, so let's model those right now. We'll just scale them in different ways to have some variety, but the base design remains the same. There will also be a bush between the buildings and the foreground, and we're going to make it using metaballs. Blender objects are attached to each other, creating different shapes, and we can turn them into a conventional mesh once we're done. This will usually result in a crazy amount of vertices, something like 200,000, but we'll reduce it with a modifier in just a moment. By the way, metaballs only attach into each other if they share the same base name, so be careful with that. It's what we refer to as a metaball family, and by base name I mean that it's okay if they have a dot and a number at the end, which is the normal behavior when you duplicate them. Now let's import our main buildings into the scene. We want them in one piece, so for each one of them select all of the objects that compose them with A, then duplicate with Shift and D and apply all modifiers in the clone meshes before joining them with Ctrl J. Copy and paste the result of each building into the main scene. Literally just open two Blender windows and do Ctrl C and Ctrl B from one to another. Back to the metaballs. Apply the decimate modifier with a ratio value of something like 0.02 to reduce vertex count. And we won't even lose much of the smoothness of the original shape. With all of the special buildings in the scene, align them together and scale them to match their heights in real life. Texture time. And this one's gonna be pretty big to account for all of those objects, so I'm gonna go with 2048 by 2048 pixels. And I'm gonna start by adding a reference picture to pick some colors from. Getting the pipes right is extremely important, so I'm gonna try many things here, starting with a combination of solid colors. But that didn't work. So actually the best thing here is to create a gradient and apply it to both sides of the pipe. That will also mimic a light reflection. The ground texture is one of my favorite parts. We want it to look as tasty as possible, just like a cake with many layers. I'll start with a base yellow background and then add a few layers separated by perfectly looping stripes. When it comes to the UVs, both sides don't need to match perfectly because the players will never see them connect directly. Now we're ready to move on to our main character and last model, the bird.